little while back, I built a deck as a joke initially, but it actually taught us some lessons about Commander and changed how we build decks, so we're going to talk about it today.
I'm Mia, and I love sorting bulk.
I'm BZ. My hands are actually legitimately sore right now from sorting too much bulk. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Card Kingdom. They have magic cards. You want magic cards. If you get enough magic cards, you can start sorting them until your hands hurt, which is what we both love doing. And they should have free shipping on $50 or more, but I don't want to step on your toes.
Oh, no, I was going to say, they come in one big order that you can sort, or they will sort it for you. Maybe. I don't know. Check and you can ask. You are also sponsored by Dragon Shield. Best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you use the code
Nerds
at checkout, you can save 5% of your real money tax dollars on your entire order, which includes the new Samurai sleeves. They are art sleeves. They are super cool, and they can be very thematic for any deck that you have.
They're sleek. We have a sponsor. It's called Moxfield, but later. We're not going to tell you what it is right now. You might not even know. Stay tuned. You're going to get bamboozled in the middle of nowhere. Just out of nowhere completely, we're going to get you. And if you want to see more nerds, we have a Patreon. That's where I upload bi-weekly $5 deck techs. You can get in for that as low of a tier of $2. You can pay $2 a month and get access to that and our Discord. It's very, very fun. So we're going to set the stage today because we got a little bit of a weird video, a little bit of a different one. First, we're going to take you through this meme deck that I brewed. Then we're going to talk about the lessons that we learned from it and how we incorporate them into our decks today. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to give you some examples that you can use for your decks, because I think this is actionable advice.
Yeah, I think this deck is a super weird one. It was built off of a restriction that BZ had. But watching people play against it has really helped me impart some advice, or at least just like experiences onto the way that I build decks now.
It's created some very interesting scenarios. So we're going to start with the origins of my meme deck. It started with my love for Dragon Lord Ojutai. I love this card. But one of the things that I struggle with is building good stuff decks. I want the deck to have some kind of identity, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? What do you build around with this? It's 3 blue-white for a 5/4 flyer. It has hexproof as long as it's untapped. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So after playing around with a lot of different ideas, I realized that Ojutai requires opponents to continuously know what it does and keep track of whether it's tapped or not. I wanted to build a deck full of cards opponents could potentially forget about on the battlefield, like propaganda. If you forget about it, you won't be able to attack me, and you suffer serious consequences. There's also Patriarch's Seal. Even if Ojutai is tapped, you have to remember that I can potentially untap him to fizzle your removal spell with the seal on the battlefield. As the deck developed, I went harder and harder on the theme, and eventually I wanted every single card in my deck to have some kind of continuous effect that you have to remember. If you want to see the deck list to follow along and see what we're talking about, it's called Pay Attention. You can either find it directly through our Moxfield.com account, or you can just go to the link in the description, which will take you to the Moxfield.com deck. If you're looking to make the best deck possible, Moxfield.com is the way to go. This is the ad.
This is the ad. It's very early. We know it's here. Moxfield.com is the best place online to follow us, because that is where we update everything the most.
It might be the place we're the most active, aside from YouTube.com.
I really think it is. Moxfield is the best place to build decks. All your favorite creators, of course, us.
Yes. I will also add, this is a $100 budget deck. That's more of a restriction that I imposed on myself. It doesn't actually factor into this video at all, but I guess that's something to keep in mind if you want to build a more spiky, more powerful version. This has got $100 restrictions. So if you're wondering why a $10 card isn't in there, that's why. So Mia, I want to get your thoughts on this deck before we dive deeper into it. Just your initial, what is this deck like?
It's annoying. This deck is very annoying, and I don't mean good. I just mean annoying. If you have to keep track of, night and day, whether things are tapped and untapped. Oh, you can't cast spells that are 2, 5, and 4 CMC. Oh, by the way, did you know that if you cast 2 spells this turn, everything costs 4 more? It's annoying. It's not particularly great. It's an okay deck. It's functional, but it's annoying.
Would you say it is a stacks deck? Because I'm vehemently of the opinion this is not even remotely a stacks deck.
I think that it's closer to a stacks deck than most decks that I see, in terms of if the average deck has X amount of stacksy pieces, this has more than that. But I don't think it's a stacks deck by any means necessary.
Yeah, I would say the closest we're going to get to a stacks piece. There's blind obedience in here. The thing we're talking about that makes cards cost more, Elspeth Conquers Death, is in here. Because, of course, you have to remember that your spells cost 2 when the second chapter goes off. So it's a removal spell that forces opponents to remember something and pay attention. I understand that this is a little bit super villainy, and I don't pull this out every time, but sometimes it's fun to just go, my one joke I make about this deck is that my sub game that I'm trying to win is to let someone do a takes these backsies because they try to do something, but from whatever like dumb thing I have on board, I go, actually, I can stop that. But if you want to take it back, it's fine. And it's just like a goofy game we play. I don't think people are too miserable against it, but the deck is it's just annoying.
Yeah, I definitely don't think this is stacks pieces. There are some strategies that it completely hinders with a couple cards, but it's not built towards that in general. And if you have a piece or two of removal, I think that it's easy to just kind of know what's hurting your deck and get rid of it.
Yeah, so don't worry. The theme is not, the lesson that you're supposed to learn is not just be annoying and aggravate people. This is a meme deck, but there actually is some actual useful information hidden in this meme deck. And I'm going to go over some of the examples of cards that you'll find in this deck that sort of take the place of A, any instant that affects the board at instant speed, and B, sort of like your bread and butter, your removal, your ramp. Things like Spiketail Drakeling. This will give you a good idea for what the deck is. Instead of playing Counterspell, I'm playing this 1 blue 2/2 flyer that says sacrifice this creature, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. It is an onboard counterspell. Some would say much, much worse than Counterspell, but that is part of the fun of playing this deck and adhering to this ridiculous restriction.
Everything is really face up with these, and the important and kind of weird take on this is that everyone knows that you have it, right? Which is bad because you lose the element of surprise. But it's good because when everyone knows you have it, they try and play around it. They always think that they're the biggest threat, unless BZ specifically tells them they're not the biggest threat. And so I feel like a lot of deals are made.
A lot of things happen. A lot of social interactions arise. There's also Soul Snare. White for an enchantment. You can pay white and sacrifice it to exile target creature that's attacking you or a planeswalker you control. We will get into some of these cards later, but this is a very funny alternative to Swords to Plowshares that I have.
I also think it's very interesting because not only do you have to pay for these, you also have to keep up the mana. So if BZ taps out for a turn and he has Soul Snare up, no, he doesn't.
Because that's another thing you have to remember.
Yeah, but it's also something that BZ has to remember.
True.
So it's like there's some days where sometimes even you'll have a takesy backsies. You won't remember you have propaganda, and you're like, oh, attack you. Oh no, 2 turns ago, you shouldn't have been able to attack me.
One or I'll like, it'll accidentally be night instead of day. One card I have in here just to troll Mia is the Celestis. It's a mana rock. It's a mana rock that forces you to keep track of things. There's nothing else there. It's just kind of a little bit of a bother.
Hear me out here. I think Night and Day is one of the worst mechanics to ever be in Magic, and I don't play Night and Day cards, minus Vadric, he's a very good card, because of the fact that Night and Day is not cool.
It's mildly cumbersome, I would say. Elspeth Conquers Death, let's talk about it. 3 white for an enchantment. You exile target permanent, and opponent controls a mana value 3 or greater. Chapter 2 is non-creature spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast until your next turn. Chapter 3 is you reanimate a creature or a planeswalker with a counter. Good if Ojtai dies. This is a nice one in terms of getting EV, expected value, out of opponents forgetting things, because it just creates this sort of like ethereal effect, this boon, this emblem that everybody has to remember for a turn. And it's very, very easy to forget and not plan your turn accordingly. So when I hit you with that actually costs 2 more, you might go, oh no. Even if I take this back, my turn is not what I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting with this one because it snipes removal spells a lot. I'll see people holding up like a swords or a path or something, and then immediately there's a very big difference from 1 to 3, as you will soon feel.
Yeah, it really is. And it lets me find a window to attack with Ojtai, because then it can be tapped and I can still get the trigger off it to draw a card. Also, Liquid Metal Torque, because the mana rocks, I need ramp still. I still have to ramp into Ojtai. I need to cast my spells, get mana acceleration. So I try to make as many of the mana rocks as possible do something. This one, you have to remember that it can tap to make something an artifact. So if somebody fires off a Farewell or an Austere Command, I can go, whoop, make that, or I can make a deal proactively to go, hey, do you have Naturalize? I can kill a creature with it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more interesting interactions with this, though. It doesn't really come up that often. I feel like a lot of this deck is corner cases, where it's just like, if a creature's attacking you, but if you have like Marionette Apprentice, okay, lose 30, B's gonna be like, oh, well, I can't remove that because it's not attacking me.
Yeah, and part of the awkwardness that I think balances out the deck being mildly annoying sometimes is that when I can't answer something and I pass the turn, I can't answer it. You know that I don't have anything because I have no instance that can affect the board. I don't think I have any instance at all, but no instance that affect the board. And finally, board wipes. We have Promise of Loyalty, 4 and a white sorcery. Look, a board wipe just destroys all the creatures. We can't have that. We have to force them to remember something. So let's say each player puts a vow counter on a creature they control and sacrifices the rest. Each of those creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control for as long as they have vow counters on it. So you can keep your best thing, but it can't attack me, and you have to remember that.
Yeah, and I feel like that completely negates what you want out of a board wipe sometimes. Sometimes it's like, the best thing on the board, obviously, is not something that's attacking. Sometimes it's just a value piece that stands out. I'm never going to be worried. It's like, oh, I have Muldrotha out? Well, I'll put a Vow counter on that.
Sure, I want to attack you with my gutter snipe.
Yeah, it's just like, sometimes that is the interesting part of this deck, which leads us to the point where I said before, it's not that good.
It's not that good. So I do have the win rate because I do keep track of all my games. And this deck's win rate is, I would say, decent. I have played 20 games with it. I have 7 wins and 13 losses. So it has a 35% win rate, which is surprisingly above what you'd expect if you just sit down and everybody's got a 25% chance of winning. So very surprisingly, this deck actually has closed out many a game. And it's fun to see. A lot of times what happens is you just sort of overwhelm them in the air and you've got enough random crap in play that you can stop the first or the second thing they do. And then it's literally just like mediocre flyer beats. I do have Approach of the Second Sun in here too. I think this is not an instance of the Flex Seal meme where I throw it into a deck I have no business winning with, because it is a win con that forces them to remember where it is. So I thought it was like a flavor home run for that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely better suited there than other decks. I also think that if you were to try this strategy, you need a commander that can close out damage. I feel like without commander damage, this deck would not win as much as it does. I mean, if you equip Ojutai with any sort of counter or equipment or whatever, which I think you have a couple floating around here.
Yeah, because you want to give Ojutai Vigilance, which just makes him like a 6/5 absolute beater. And then usually you kill one person with commander.
Yeah, it's 4 strikes and you're out at that point. Bigger, more if you can get him a little bit bigger. And I think that if you're trying to do this like a 1/1 commander, a 2/2, even a 3/3, you're going to have a much harder time hitting that win rate.
Yeah, so we're going to now extrapolate some lessons from this deck. We actually have some actionable stuff for you, things that we learned while playing with, for me, and against, for you, this deck. And again, the lesson is not to play 0 instance. Feel free to play as many instances you want. But we noticed a few overperformers for this deck that we'll get into. Number 1, Seal of Removal. You may remember this on an episode of Overperformers. That's largely from its inclusion in this deck. Blue for an enchantment, sacrifice this enchantment. Return target creature to its owner's hand. This card looks terrible. And I had it in because there's not many options for on-board removal that I can use. But it is played out so much better than terrible.
I think the reason is because it's free once you put it down. I mean, I've had a lot of success with this in my Mendicant core deck, where you have the little baubles where it's like, sack this, pay a blue, and then return it to your owner's hand. These like cheap little ways to get value once it's put down, and you don't have to invest much or any in mana in this case to actually do the effect. And it's very, very face up, as you can see. There's no instance, no flash spells or anything in this deck. And because of that, everyone thinks that their creature is the one to get bounced, as I alluded to earlier. So they're going to be like aiming at BZ. They're going to be like, well, if I don't attack you with this, you won't bounce it, right? And like BZ might not be afraid of getting attacked by the thing that they're trying to do. So he'll go, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. And then that will just be free points, basically. That'll just be free negotiation power by having this thing that is just face up and everyone thinks that they're the biggest threat, which most people aren't.
Yeah, the next example, Seal of Cleansing. 1 and a white enchantment, sacrifice it, destroy an artifact or enchantment. Very similar concept, different permanents that it hits. Don't need to go too much more into it because we got more to say after this next one. I'm going to go for Opposition. Now, I will once again defend this is not a stacks card in this deck, at least. When I think Opposition, I do think it is a stacks piece in 1v1 because the play pattern is to tap all their lands every turn so they can't play the game. This is literally in here to tap creatures to, first of all, heavily impact the game. Now, this might be a future overperformer because just the threat of, if you're going to attack me or you don't say who you're going to attack, I'm going to tap it. Otherwise, you can do whatever you want. That effect on the game has been colossal. It has been ridiculously huge. And then with Vigilant creatures, you can get in and then tap something on the end step to shut off blockers. It is definitely a hold it up, wait to see what happens, and you get so much mileage out of it.
I would also like to argue the fact that you said you only tap creatures when I have seen you tap Mazavith and a couple other, utility lands that weren't favorable for you.
Look, I'm not saying I'm never tapping lands.
I'm just saying.
I'm not saying I'm never tapping lands, but primarily you're tapping creatures with this.
Yeah, I would say that's primarily creatures. You do have some flyers around. I'm just throwing it out there that BZ's a liar.
Oh yeah, just as a dirty liar. So we're going to nickname these cards, these types of cards, telegraph cards. Even though these spells are quote unquote worse than instants that do the exact same thing, disenchant, unsummon, I don't know, maybe Aetherize for, I don't know, opposition, whatever, one of those. Playing them and holding them over the table's head has some very interesting effects on the game that we will go over now, part of the lessons we've learned. Opponents have absolute certainty that you are not bluffing. The proof is on the battlefield. When I play Seal of Removal or whatever, one of these permanents that can be used immediately on someone's thing very openly, they know you're not bluffing. They can't play the game of like, okay, I'll make you have it. It's like, no, I have it. It's right here.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. In Magic, I feel like people don't bluff that much. People might say like, ooh, I'll kill that, but I don't think people bluff as often as that maybe they do in like 1v1. I'm thinking about like LSV's like goes to, goes to tap the land. Yeah, never mind. Commander players don't really do that because it's a more casual format, but it's saying like, I will counter that if you don't, because most of the time, I'd say like 90% of the time, they do have the counter spell. I feel like people don't bluff that often, but having that 100% I am not bluffing is just cementing kind of your fate. If you have a big game-winning turn, you get more nervous about playing that Crater Hoof or something else in your hand.
Let's look at like Spiketail Drakeling. If I just have a couple mana up, the Blue Mage has mana up, respect it. Will you play Crater Hoof or Rise of the Dark Realms? I'd say the answer is maybe. It's not yes 100%. It's not no 100%. It's maybe. Will you play it if you have to tap out and I have Spiketail Drakeling literally sitting here? No, you just won't. So it definitely has a weird impact on that part of the game. The next one is that opponents know implicitly that if they threaten you, the spell can and will be used against them. And the best part about this is I think it's entirely unspoken.
Yeah, I think that a lot of this deck plays like Kira Great Glass Spitter, if you guys know what I'm talking about. It basically forces the table to team up if all these are on the field. If you deem that BZ is the archenemy, of course. If you don't deem him as archenemy, you can go, well, it's not coming after me, so I don't care. I'll go swing at the real archenemy. But if you deem BZ's the archenemy, someone's going to have to get their thing removed or bounced or whatever. And you're going to have to do some sort of teamwork to get that to happen because it's all on board. You can calculate it like move by move at that point.
Right, like fighting through a soul snare, losing your best thing, even though it doesn't feel good. And there's definitely a lot of things going there. And it's like, yeah, if I have a soul snare and you have a 10-10, you just know that you're going to lose it. And I think there's a psychological aspect to that I think lets me get away with a lot of shenanigans with this deck where they just don't do it.
Yeah, people just try and bargain with you, even if, because all of these are one-time use effects. There are very few that are like opposition where you can keep doing them over and over. A lot of them are like, sack it, destroy this, do this, but it's going to get destroyed anyways. It's like, with that in mind, he can only do it once. And I need people to remember that if they're playing against it. There's not a ton of recursion in here.
Right, yeah. Forcing me to do it. That's the trick that I think, I even if you understand it, I think it's difficult to enact it. Like, oh, well, if I just force BZ to use it, then he can't hold this over the table's head. And that's true. But a lot of times, it feels really bad to waste your entire turn to stop my unsummon, to just like totally reset yourself. And sometimes you can't afford to do that when there's high pressure and the table's developing resources really fast and there's other threats in play. It's like, okay, so I have to sacrifice my threat to stop this thing that doesn't even seem like it's going to win the game.
Yeah, it's also because of the fact that you have to make deals with other players. Not only does this game become political around this deck, it becomes political with everyone else. It's like, if I sack my turn, will you two-punch BZ? Well, like, if I, let my thing get unsummoned, I will try and attack him. Will you guys, take out the rest of his stuff? And it's also a twofold because sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, it can only be used once. Sometimes people will just let it through because it's not the scariest thing on the board. I might be swinging at him with a 7/7 vanilla, but that has nothing, to do with the fact that there's a 3/2 over there, but it has some crazy ability that he just like can't break through. So he's going to take the 7 at that point.
Yeah, that old saying about how propaganda is really good because it forces players to attack elsewhere. This deck is the ultimate version of that. It is literally just that to the maximum. It has propaganda and Ghostly Prison. I still think those are bad cards, but they are literally perfect for
it's on theme.
They're for the flavor of like, if you tap out pre-combat, you can't attack me. Oops, you forgot. That kind of thing. And this is the ultimate version of that. It's just everything is held up and there's constant either verbal or non-verbal communication that I'm just going to negate what you're doing or make it worse, make it unfavorable if you go after me. And it's only a one-time thing. Sometimes, unlike opposition is continuous, but it just has this serious psychological effect on players. And I'm telling you right now, if you build this deck or a better version that has instants also, which I would highly recommend for a powerful deck that isn't just a theme deck, you will bamboozle people. I don't think people are going to know how to play against this. If you just sit down against people who haven't watched this video, I think you're going to get crazy mileage out of the deck.
I have learned over time how to play against this deck, watching other people, but playing against it for the first time, it is pretty surprising as to the dynamics of the rest of the table. Also, I just want to point out, as the Mendicant Core Azorius player here, you're not giving Azorius a very good name.
No.
Azorius is known to be no fun allowed, permissions, tax, stacks, etc. Grand Arbiters, Lavinia, etc. You're not helping with that.
I'm really
I just want to throw that out there.
I'm not winter orbing anyone, but I'm not doing Azorius any favors.
It doesn't feel good anyways.
I'm not doing anyone
but
favors.
Overall, I think that just you're going to have to sack some stuff. You're going to have to make some concessions. But if you take him out of the game real early, it's fine because you won't have to deal with that at that point.
Don't do that. Okay, the next impact that these things have on the game is that killing a permanent that can be sacrificed for value immediately seems like a bad play, and I'll put seems in italics there. And it rarely ever happens in actuality because it doesn't feel smart. I think there is definitely a want to have your plays feel impactful and useful to the game. That forward things they really set someone back or they really help, and it's very obvious that this removal spell was great. But let's say blowing up my unsummon or the thing that I'm just going to use anyway, even though that's sometimes the right play, I feel like it just never happens.
I also think it has to do with mana economy. A lot of the things that BZ puts down are 1, 2, and 3 mana. They're very, very cheap. They're very cheap to employ, and they're very cheap to have this done with. Very cheap to use mana-wise. Maybe you keep up 1 mana, maybe 2 at most. And I feel like with a lot of average Commander players, they're not running the 3-for-1 removal that we talk about a lot, or they're running things like Beast Within or Anguished Unmaking. Perfectly fine. But if you're not running Nature's Claim and the 1 mana one, pick your poison, there we go. If they're not running pick your poison and you're not running Nature's Claim, for instance, it feels really bad to destroy Seal of Cleansing because the mana rate isn't there. I spent 3 mana to destroy your 1 mana thing that you can just pop immediately.
And
it's that mana rate that just makes everything feel so bad.
With the added implication that when you blow up my thing, I'm going to blow up your mana rock or your 4 mana enchantment, and that doesn't feel good. Deploying these permanents also, if we're talking about what my deck maybe has an edge over sometimes, it's not all the time, but when you constantly deploy these things, you're never holding up mana, for instance, that you don't cast. So that is an upside. Obviously, the correct way to go is a marriage of these two things, so you can hold up instants, really tricky things that you can't get on enchantments, like get Teferi's Protection or something, and this stuff that you just play them all, and you just start. What I think happens with this deck is you just start accumulating them as nobody answers them, and as people just go, I'm staying out of this one. Cool, now there's 6 of them, and I can just keep playing them because I'm not holding up mana for anything.
I don't know. I'm going to argue this one just a little bit. I don't think that you're saving mana at this point. I think you're just paying in installments because there are pros and cons to everything. If you hold up 2 mana for a Path and a Swords, it doesn't matter if you get Farewell to all modes. But if BZ plays this thing is I'm going to destroy an enchantment or something, and it's an enchantment and all the enchantments are going to get wiped anyways, probably doesn't feel that great because you're you could hold something up and play at the right time versus on the board, face up, wipe everything. Oh, well, there goes my mana investment for nothing.
A disadvantage of my deck specifically is that I'm not going to have hard counter spells that people don't know about. So if you have a Farewell, you'll know if it resolves against me or not. That's really bad for me. I think when you take these cards and you take them and put them into your decks that are functional and good, I don't think you're going to have that problem as much. But I just will say that, if you ever, tapping out for multiples of these means that you're never not spending mana on a spell. If that makes sense. If I have a counter spell and I pass the turn and I don't play it, versus if I played some crappy thing, hey, I at least spent the mana and now it's on the board for a while.
I think there's also just another note here where it's Commander is a very complicated game to begin with, obviously. 4 players, 4 boards to keep track of, how much mana you have, the creatures you have, the trades that are going to be made, already a complicated game. This, I feel like, is just tax, but in a different way. It's taxing to the mental fatigue of Commander. It really is.
It literally taxes your brain.
I feel like if you're not practiced in playing against this type of deck or decks with a lot of responses or a lot of triggers and that sort of thing, it is easy for this deck to kind of run circles around you because you have so much information, you just don't really know what to do with all of it, where to store it in your head. And I think it's completely understandable. There's just a lot, even to the point where BZ forgets some of the stuff. It's just a lot.
And that's, again, if that doesn't sound appealing to you, that's my deck that only does this and does it constantly. That's what my deck does. You can take the best parts of that for yourself and have none of the baggage, which is what we're saying. And I think we need to, and we have, and we will continue to incorporate some of these telegraph cards into our decks. So what we've done for you is compile a little list of cards that you should consider. These are potential telegraph cards. There are plenty that we're not listing, but we're going to list a solid handful of them and keep them on your radar. Try to incorporate some of them into your decks because even with no synergy, these cards have overperformed.
Yeah, the first one is Bounty Agent. 1 and white for a 2/2 with Vigilance. Tap to sack this creature and destroy target legendary permanent. That's an artifact, creature, or enchantment. You're probably just going to be using this on someone's commander, but it's very scary, and it's going to be coming down for 2 mana, especially if you can find a way to get it back, like an Aetherios type deal, or if, something like that, or you can just replay it from the graveyard. Carador, perhaps?
Carador? Yeah. Nobody wants their commander killed. A lot of times that's a huge turn where they tap out and they hope it survives. With this in play, they kind of almost have to go, are you going to kill it? And then I'm going to answer with, if you just leave me alone, then yes, I will not kill it. And then when it becomes a problem for me, I can kill it for free. Or I can just deny them any information. I go, nope, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do with this. And then they don't play their commander, which is also pretty good for me. Next up, Aether Spellbomb card we've both been playing a decent amount of. 1 for an artifact. Blue, sack it, return a creature to its owner's hand, or 1 sack it, draw a card. You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I play artifact decks here and there, and I think that just having a mass of artifacts is very, very obviously good for those, whether you're playing like Bronze Guardian or Mendicant Core or anything that cares about artifacts ETBing for very, very cheap or free. But being able to have this immediately used as an unsummon or cycle to draw a card for 2 mana, I really like that. I think that it's very good, it's very face up, and people are scared even when, in the back of my head, I know I'm just going to be using it to draw a card next turn.
Yep, and it plays into, you don't have to waste mana with this, even though it says, oh, you hold up a blue and you might not use it. If you feel comfortable, you can use that mana to sacrifice it instead. This, I think, is like a must play in heavy artifact decks.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's some points to be made for it outside of that and just throw it in a deck and see how it plays because it is fun to experiment with these cards. And I think you'll see an interesting effect. But like in an artifact deck, you got to play this. It's so good. It does this psychological warfare thing. And it's the type that your deck has 40 of.
Yeah, I've been really liking this card. I want to play more spell bombs to begin with. I just can't fit all of them in. I really like the spell bomb type. The 1 mana comes down and then you have some sort of effect or you sack it for some effect. I think you should be playing Soul Guide Lantern more.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That's another telegraph card that I just think people should be playing more. It's not even on this list. I'm just letting you know you should play it.
It's legitimately, we're going to add it to this list. Soul Guide Lantern is exactly this type of thing, and you can sack it for a different effect. One you probably know of and hate is Glenelender Archmage, because this is absolutely a telegraph card, and it's so good at its job that some people don't play it. It's 3 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer with Persist. Blue, sack it, counter a non-creature spell. Because this doesn't add any buyout, like you can't pay 3, you can't pay 2. It's a hard counter for your board wipe, for your win con, for your big card draw spell. And because it has a second life, this one slows the game down. Nobody will do anything. Nobody wants to run out a thing to have you go, yeah, I'll counter it, and then still have your Glenelender in play.
Yeah, so nasty, especially if you can put +1/+1 counters on it when it comes in, and you're just like, okay, well, I have the mana, so why wouldn't I counter that?
This was years ago, but somebody did have like a Good Fortune Unicorn and a Glenelender Archmage in play at the same time, which would be a combo with a sack outlet, but they didn't have one. So it just said you can't cast non-creature spells. It's like, oh my God, how are we supposed to answer that? I think we conceded. Sinister Concoction next. You probably haven't thought about this card in a while, but I think you should. Black for an enchantment. Black, pay 1 life, mill a card, discard a card, sacrifice this enchantment. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 costs, and you destroy target creature. There's not a lot of black enchantments that destroy creatures that I think are aggressively costed, and this is one of them. So if you have a heavy graveyard theme, if you have like a reanimator strategy, I definitely would consider this. I'm going to play this in at least one deck. I know it looks like Draft Chaff, but hopefully with the half hour of like information that we've said so far, it makes sense as to why we're suggesting this.
Yeah, this is definitely more of a specific one. I wouldn't cram it into as many decks as I would cram Soul Guide Lantern or Aether Spellbomb.
Yeah.
But if your deck can take advantage of all these, maybe you like to pay life, maybe you want stuff in the graveyard. I hope you want stuff in the graveyard. Maybe you're in a Madness deck. I don't know what you want.
I'm preempting it right now because I'm just thinking about it. The comments on this video are going to be wild. And I think I'll use this point in the video to send a time code to say, hey, Are you sure you watched the whole video? Because I think we've covered our bases. But next we have Underhanded Designs, 1 and a black for an enchantment. Whenever an artifact you control enters, you can pay 1 and drain everybody for 1. And you can pay 1 and a black and sacrifice it to destroy target creature, but only if you control 2 or more artifacts. That's gotta, if that condition isn't met, you shouldn't play this card. So this is like a heavy artifact card. I think it's okay. Like 2 and 2 to destroy 1 creature, that's starting to stretch it. But because it has some other effect and it can chip in for some damage, almost like a mini extort, I would at least consider this, put it on your list, see if you have room for it, and try it out. I think these cards are worth trying. You might have success with them, you might hate them, but I think we've seen plenty of games be decided partially by some of these cards.
I think there's a lot of effects like this, and we're always clamoring to play them, whether that be Marionette Master, Marionette Apprentice,
The drain for artifacts.
I mean, Mirkwood Bats we talk about all the time, and so having another one, if that is the main theme of your deck, cannot hurt. I feel like with this, I would say 1 and a black, first line, and then the rest is gravy.
Yeah, buy these cards on Card Kingdom, by the way, because they're all available there. Free shipping on orders $50 and more. We would appreciate it because it helps the channel, helps keeps the lights on, and it helps get you great Magic cards all in one package. But we also have a card I have not talked about. I don't even know if I've ever mentioned this card in my entire life on the channel. It's Attrition. 1 black, black enchantment. Black, sacrifice a creature, destroy target non-black creature. To me, this was always in the 2012 Magic category. We're like, hey man, it's been a while, Attrition. You're not busted anymore, but I'm coming back to this. I want to see what this thing can do with the knowledge that we have now. And now I think players are also just better at politicking than they were in 2012, right? Or there's more players, there's more people, there's more lines of thought. I want to try Attrition again.
I'm willing to see what you do with this. I don't think I'll be playing this, but I also don't think I have the right home for this. I feel like maybe if I found the right home, this would be good.
Yeah, you have a sack deck, but this is a rare, and that deck has no rares in it.
Yeah, I also think that this might be a little bit expensively costed for that.
Once you do it twice, it starts to feel pretty good. And I think once you can start to get that propaganda, like, oh, instead of killing it, I just sent it somewhere else. And then I keep doing that. And when you don't even have to pay mana into it, then that's where you're really going to get
You
to
better
it.
have a lot of fodder for that and a fair amount of mana to work with.
You need creatures, for sure. Goblin Crater Maker, for moving on to red ones, is 1 and a red for a 2-2. You pay 1 and sack it to either deal 2 to a creature or destroy a colorless non-land permanent. This is more narrow in what it can hit, but I've seen this actually on the battlefield a couple times in like random goblin decks, and it has a mini version of the Telegraph card effect.
I think it's pretty interesting because destroy target colorless non-land permanent doesn't feel great, but when it hits a coat of arms or a soul ring, it's going to feel really, really good. It is pretty narrow though, but I feel like a lot of utility creatures are within that 2 health range, whether you're hitting a Dothy Voidwalker or
Oracle.
you could be hitting Oracle of Moldiah, you could be hitting a Lotho or something. I feel like there's a lot of wimpy little creatures that you're going to be playing early and you go, okay, well this can be sniped by them, that's okay, and if not, well there goes your Signet.
I think you get some threat out of this too. I think this is maybe a card you have to be more proactive with your politics on, because I don't want to use it on a Signet. That's not a great trade for me. It's really annoying as if I'm thinking of from the other person's perspective. If I say, if you attack me this turn, I'm going to blow up your Signet. That sucks for them. That's bad for you too, but I think most of the time they're going to go, oh, really? And then go somewhere else or complain and then not do it.
I mean, definitely. I feel like politicking with this is the entire game, especially if someone's like missing lands, missing colors, etc. Probably not the nicest thing to do, but if you're trying to win and it helps them not win, maybe it's something you have to do.
I'm not saying blow up their Signet on turn 3 just to be a jerk. I'm saying offer them a deal. If they reject it, I don't see why it's a bad move to blow up their Signet. If they don't
blow up their Soul Ring though, any turn, that's a great deal.
Any turn. Seal of Primordium is just a color shifted version of Seal of Cleansing. 1 in a green enchantment, sacrifice it to naturalize. I'd recommend this in the green decks, and part of what makes Seal of Removal, Cleansing, and Primordium extra spicy is you can have the enchantment sub-theme. I think all 3 of these are must-plays in Enchantress builds. They are great. I had a Bant Enchantress deck. Seal of Removal was phenomenal.
They're just a free roll. They're probably going to support you a card back to begin with because of all of your Enchantress stuff. You're probably going to get life. You're probably going to get like 10 cards because all the Enchantress decks are going to have the draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. You're like, okay, well, this 2-mana enchantment that's going to destroy something anyways got me 3 cards. Definitely better than like Nature's Claim in those decks.
By the way, I didn't even mention the other side effect of specifically Seal of Removal. Because it bounces any creature, it also now taxes them with their removal. Do I want to play a removal spell on your big creature when you're just going to bounce it. I think that factors into everything we said before, but it's another wrinkle that they have to think about, and it's another deterrent from doing that.
It's also a factor because it says bounce a creature, but it could be a creature you control, so in response to a board wipe, you can hold it up as like mini insurance too.
Or sometimes if you have the best creature and that's the reason they want to wipe, they just don't do it because it's just going to leave you, they wipe, you bounce, pass it to you, play the thing, and it's like, okay, we're back where we started. Cinder Vines is green-red for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature, they take 1, and you pay 1 and sack it to naturalize something, and that deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. How do you feel about this versus like Seal of Primordium? It's very similar. It's like better, but it costs mana.
I feel like this would have a lot of homes if it was red-black. I feel like Rakdos, Pain decks, the Moguses, and the Valgavals would have a great time with this. But I don't think that in green-red there are a lot of those type of effects where you can take advantage of the first one, and at that point it just says 3 mana, sack it, destroy it, deal 2.
Well, 1 mana sack it. You have to play it for 2, but you do have a static effect.
I'm like totaling everything up.
Yeah. I think I'm going to try this one. I think rule decks are going to like this. And you can definitely get some stuff going. Now, here's the most, by far, stay with me. Here is the most aggressive telegraph card in the world that I think is still good. Fulminator Mage. I will stand by this, and I'm putting it back in decks. I think Joe Cherry's talked me out of it forever ago, but no. It's coming back. 1 black-red hybrid for a 2/2, and all it does is you sacrifice it to destroy target non-basic land. Now, this card requires you to be aggressive with your politics, and you can basically do something along the lines of this. Whoever comes after me first, whoever blows up my commander, whatever you want to input, whoever attacks me for more than 6, I'm going to blow up one of your lands. Promise. It's free. I never have to worry about not holding it up. Doesn't matter if it's tapped or untapped. I'm just going to do it. That has gotten me some mileage in games. It is an abysmally bad top deck, but it's also a little bit of extra hate against some of the lands that you want to blow up anyway, like the Game Changers. So there's that to consider. I like this one, but it's very aggressive. You're going to come out swinging and probably not make a ton of friends that game.
I think that this is very highly divisive depending on what you use it on. I think that if you're using it on a Nykthos, people might say, that's fine, and the one person might hate you. If you use it on Field of the Dead, same response. If you use it on like a Temple Garden, because they attacked you for 6, I think the rest of the table might come after you. I'm not saying this is a bad card. I think that lands are the strongest thing in Commander because they're very hard to interact with. There are some very juicy, stapley lands out there, whether that be Cabal Coffers, Field of the Dead, Three Tree City, etc., etc. Very good lands, and I think they deserve to get blown up. But I think that using coming out swinging politics might land you into some hot water.
It might, but what are they going to do? Because I'm going to blow up their land. So
probably swing at you again.
With this card, don't play it proactively. I think it's bad if you play it proactively. If you just use it as 3 mana Stone Rain, it's terrible. Even if you play it on turn 3 and blow up someone's land to be a jerk, I think that's bad for you, and you shouldn't do it. Where you get all the value from this card is 100% reactive. I promise you, nobody wants to get Stone Rained in the first 5 turns. So when you play this early, you kind of get a little bit of immunity from various shenanigans early on. I think that does help you once you get to the mid game then.
I also think that these effects are kind of interesting because you need to know what to politic for. Because I'm thinking about my Uro deck, for instance. You've played against it with Ojutai a couple times. What are you going to say to me? Like, don't attack me with Uro? Like, fine, I'll go somewhere else. But, like, I'm still going to get those triggers and stuff.
Well, you're ramping, so you're probably, like, some
not
decks...
Not that worried.
Some decks are more okay with getting Strip Mined, but I'm still going to offer it. Like, I already have the card on the battlefield, so all I can do is continue to offer that deal and hope that you reject it.
Yeah, there's also a lot of decks that will play just a lot of basics, whether that be budget reasons or because you are a one-color deck and you just want to be rocking a lot of your favorite basics. And at that point, maybe this just doesn't do anything for that. And that's also very funny.
But that's still only 1 out of 3 players. The other 2 players are still under the Fulminator.
I just think it's very funny. There are corner cases for all of these.
So true. Next, Angelic Shield, a card I've never played in my entire life, but I swear to you, I'm going to try now because it has a similar effect to Seal of Removal. It's blue-white for an enchantment. Creatures you control get +0/+1. Not irrelevant. Kind of interesting. Does more than Seal of Removal on the board. And you can sack it to bounce a creature. Your creatures, their creatures. I want to get this effect into the deck. It's going in Ojutai for sure. This was one I hadn't considered, but it's going in.
It's nice to have the Anthem effect. I think the 1 extra butt really does matter when it comes to trades at times. And, or just not even trades, just when you swing. There's definitely a difference between, a 2/2 and a 2/3. I feel like that is a pretty big difference when you come down to it, even if it's only 1 butt power.
Yeah, bumping 1/1s into each other changes the math with Angelic Shield for sure. And it has all of the upside of a Seal of Removal. I want to get devious with that one. I think that one's really, really good. Lastly, if you like opposition and you don't like that it says land on it, you can try Glare of Subdual, 2 green-white for an enchantment, tap an untapped creature you control, tap target artifact or creature. Here's how your token decks and your go-wide decks can just completely dominate the board / force opponents to kill each other if they want to have the feeling like they're making an impact. Like they have a 6/6. I want to attack with it. I want to get damage in. Okay, well, you're not going to get it in me. And if you don't specify, you're not going to get it at all. So make a deal with me and do it. And a lot of people just take it, and that's totally fine. But it's great for you, the player, the controller of it.
Yeah, it's also just like, this is where politics comes into play.
Oh,
say BZ has a board of 10 creatures. That's a lot. That's a lot of taps. But if you have 5, 5, and 5, someone's going to have to get tapped. And then you go, okay, well, 5 of us are getting in to hit BZ.
That's an arch enemy scenario, though.
Yeah, you just have to kind of politic your way out of it, you know? Because at that point, the effect will be gone if he's gone.
Do I have to build a 5-color version where I can play like Fulminator Mage into Angelic Shield? I don't know. Maybe there is, but I think hopefully you learned something from this. Hopefully you can take some of the lessons that we took with this nonsensical deck and apply them to your real decks to make them just straight up better. Supplement a few of your sorcery speed removal with these. I think that would be a great change to make. I think we're really low on sorcery speed removal, but if you change it to some of these telegraph cards, I think you'll see a ton of success. If you have a ton of instants, try making a few changes. Let us know how this change does for you. I think it's going to be awesome. If you want to see another video, Mia, what video are they going to see?
They're going to be seeing the Final Fantasy Precon video right here.
Check it out.